the last thing we're going to do is we're going to work on just writing equations. So there's just these two examples, and these are the last couple questions on homework 3 as well. And then you guys will have the period to work on homework 3 or your weekly review. Homework 3 is due on Tuesday, so you really want to finish it so that you don't have to do any homework over the weekend. Okay, that was really the goal. And then weekly review 2 is due on Thursday like normal. So remember when we're writing equations, you guys, if you did the graphing well, then this should be pretty okay. So like this is a sine function, so I'm looking to put together an equation like this. I just want to place things in the places that I know where they belong, okay? So some of the things you can put in right away. Okay. So remember that your H and your K are exactly your shifting, either left and right or up and down, and that your A does correspond exactly to your amplitude. The B does correspond to the period, but with work, meaning like you can't just plug in the number like the rest of them, okay? So the fact that the amplitude is 2 tells me right away that my A value in my equation that I want to use is going to be 2. The fact that I'm shifting right pi over 10, right means that's happening to x, which means this is corresponding to an h value being pi over 10. And up 3 means that my k value is 3. So the A, the H, and the K, if you have this language on there, you have those things immediately. So I have my A is 2, my H is pi over 10. I kind of left an open spot for my B, and my K is 3. So this is going to be my equation. I just have to work on figuring out that B value, okay? If the period is the same as the normal, the parent for the sine and the cosine function, then you have no horizontal stretching and compressing, and you can just put a 1 for your B value. What is the period or the wavelength for a parent function for sine and cosine? 2 pi. Okay, look at our period. It doesn't say 2 pi, it says pi. Okay, so remember what you did to get the period. You're just going to solve that little equation to figure out your B value. So you used to take 2 pi and you multiplied it by the reciprocal of the B value in your equation, right? If our B value in our equation was 3, we used 1 over 3, this kind of thing. And then that gave us the new period. And in this case, we know the new period is pi. So essentially, we're trying to ask ourselves this. 2 pi got multiplied by what in order to give us pi? And some of you will know that right away, but I'm going to go through some of the algebra of solving it in case it's a more difficult one that you can't see right away. So this equation becomes 2 pi over B equals pi. And then you guys can just cross multiply this if you want. I think every time you get a ratio, that might be the easiest. This is like having a pi over 1. So 2 pi can multiply with 1. 1 times 2 pi is 2 pi. B can multiply with pi. That would be B times pi. And then just keep track of what you're solving for. You're trying to get the B alone. The only thing that stands in the way of B being alone is dividing by that pi. And so we get that B is equal to 2. So B is 2. Okay. So again, the way that I would try to remember this is not an easy process if you're just trying to memorize processes. But if you remembered what happened when you were graphing, then this should make a little more sense. When we were graphing to write down the period, we took 2 pi, we times it by the reciprocal of the B in our equation, and that gave us the new period. Okay? So if you write this down every time, then you should be able to get through that transformation. All right, and then we'll do the same thing for a cosine function. Since cosine and sine have all the same properties, it's going to work exactly the same way. Okay? So when we look at the given information for the cosine function, the fact that the amplitude is 1 tells you right away that you don't really want to change your A value. You want it just like the parent function. You want it to be 1. A shift left, that's cute, left with 2 t's. A shift left pi means that our h is supposed to be a negative pi. And a shift down 1/2 would mean that our k would be a negative 1/2. Is that all right with everybody? So then that's going to give me this cosine equation. I don't need a new a value. I don't have to put a different number there other than 1. I have cosine. I'm going to leave a spot for b. This would be x minus negative pi. I'll clean it up in a minute. If you already know that that's a plus pi, that's fine. I'm trying to write it for people that aren't always sure where that's coming from. So that becomes x plus pi. And again, I need to focus on finding the b value. Okay? So I look at the period. It's not 2 pi. I'm bummed because if it was 2 pi, I just get to be done and it would be 1, but it's not. So then I think about how do I make a period different than 2 pi? I start with 2 pi. I times it by the reciprocal of b, and that is supposed to give me this new period, which in this case is pi over 3. Okay? So this means I have an equation that says 2 pi over b equals pi over 3. And again, I can cross multiply to solve that. So 2 pi can multiply with 3, and that would be 6 pi. B can multiply with pi, and I have b times pi. And remember, your goal is to get the b alone. So I'm going to divide by the pi. And I get that b is equal to 6. Okay? So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put 6 in that spot for b, and then that's my equation. All right. So some people did these immediately without me having to teach them anything. They already finished homework 3. They were able to see that. Some people could do all of it except for the b value, because that tends to be where it's a little bit confusing. Okay. That you can't just take a number and plug it into your equation, that you have to think about how you normally get that period and solve that process for b. Okay. Any questions that you guys have about writing those equations?